do this because when I was your age and I was sitting where you're sitting, I wished, oh my God, I wish somebody that had made 50 movies and traveled the world and worked with Julia Roberts had come and talked to me so I could ask them questions like, how did you get started? What, it's so, competitive. How do you separate competition from desire and talent? And what I've realized, it takes much more than talent. I mean, I'm sure you guys are very talented. I'm sure you know somebody that's extremely talented in their own right, in their own fields. But what happens when they don't go anywhere? You're like, wow, this girl can sing, man. She can sing like you wouldn't believe. Or this guy is a great actor. Or this girl can write. Or she can direct. But where do you go? I grew up in the Carnes area. And I went to Carnes for 3.5 years. And my senior year, I played football and basketball. Now, get this, my senior year. I grew up with my friends were there in Carnes. We grew up together. We played together. We fought together. We cried together. We laughed together. And in the senior year, after we played Loudon High School in football, and Loudon was number one that year in the state. And Carnes, we were pretty good. We wasn't that good, but we beat Loudon. We were the only ones that beat them that year. So after that game, it was the end of the season. I go over to the basketball department because, hang up the cleats, getting ready to play basketball. I'm on the basketball team. Been playing since the coach said, no, you're not going to play this year. We don't want you to play. We don't agree with some things that, we don't like you dating anybody here. We just want, just to play sports. So, and I was like, dating? I've never been on a date. I don't know what you're talking about, coach. He said, no, you're not going to play this year. And I thought he was joking. And so we went to the downstairs at the locker room, and all the other players, the basketball players, were sitting around, and the coach said, we're going to take a vote. And if there's one person that doesn't want you to play this year, then you're not going to play. I was like, okay. I mean, these are all my friends except for maybe a freshman or two, and I'm a senior. And I was up for All-State, possibly All-American that year. Well, it was one person that voted that didn't want me to play, so I didn't get to play. So I had to go home and tell my aunt and uncle, who was raising me at the time, that I wasn't going to play. And they were like, what do you mean? And I told them, and they went to the principal at Carnes, and the principal said, I have nothing to do with that. That's up to the coach, And so the only other relatives I had that were not alcoholics or anything, or that wasn't crazy, lived in Loudon. So I came here to live with them the last half of my senior year. I had to leave my friends and family there in Carnes area that I grew up with the last half of my senior year. So I came here, which they hated me for a lot of reasons, because we just beat them. We were the only team that beat them in football. So I'm walking in here, and everybody's like, and I didn't know how to fit in, because I just wanted to be a student. I wanted to play ball. I wanted to get a scholarship. I played football because I like football. I wasn't going to play football in college. I was like, you ain't going to kill me. I'll play basketball is what I wanted to do. But I needed to play so the colleges would see me. Well, finally, I got to play. I was on the team, but I had to sit out the first half of the season. So I only got to play the last 12 games of the year, my senior year. And then I graduated here. But I got a scholarship. I had quite a few offers. So that told me something, that, you know what? You never really start from zero. You really don't. And when people say, well, getting from 1 to 10, that's what you got to do. No, 0 to 1 is what I found is very tough. Because I know it's a lot of you saying, I want to be an actor. I could do that, or I could direct. But where do you go? I mean, this is outside of Knoxville. But let me tell you something. There are more opportunities now than there were when I started. Back in the day, as they say. It wasn't that long ago, but anyway. But the point is, there are no excuses now. They didn't have Google. When I would have been like this on my phone. Oh, what's the answer to this? Wait a minute, give me a minute. 45. So, if you didn't know, you didn't know. And I started out really slow because when I went to elementary school, they had this thing called busing, where they had to have, it was whites went to one school and the blacks went to other schools. And then they decided to bus some black kids to the white schools. So I was in that little group that went to Carnes when I was 10 or 11. So I go to Carnes elementary school, not knowing anybody, got along great. But by the time I got to high school, they didn't have the busing thing anymore. And I got to express myself in school, but I got behind in math because I just wasn't very attentive to math. But I realized that I was telling the teachers, I said, I didn't hate math. I didn't like my math teacher. So I didn't pay attention, and it was my fault. And I realized that. So as I got older, I realized there's a lot of kids like me. There's a lot of people that, might be behind in certain classes and certain subjects, but you don't say anything. Because I was embarrassed because when they bused me to Carnes, I was 2 years younger than everybody in my grade. So by the time I got to high school, I was 12, 13 as a freshman. And everybody was already advanced kind of thing, and I just kind of was catatonic, and I didn't talk. So by the time I was a sophomore or junior, I was way behind in math, especially because they don't repeat. You don't repeat addition, subtraction, and all that stuff. They assume you know that. And forget algebra. I couldn't even spell algebra. I was still doing this, in secret. I was like, and I was embarrassed, and so I didn't talk. And that made it worse. Now, my athleticism grew, but my academia did not, as it didn't catch up. In other words, I was still 2 years behind, physically and mentally, but nobody did anything about it. They didn't, I don't want to say they didn't care, but that was the way it was back then. That's just the way it was. And you had to take it or leave it. So I took it. When I was 12, and I'm only telling you this because I'm not bitter. I just want you to know I'm painting a picture that it shouldn't be any excuses anymore. When I was 12, I had a German Shepherd named King. And because of the rumors going around in that area, there's an organization called the KKK. And back then, they were more prominent, it seems like. So someone in that organization shot and hung my dog because I went to this school. They did not want me in the school at Carnes. They wanted to keep people separated. They wanted white people to be here, they wanted black people here, Asians to be there, Native Americans over here, Jewish people. It was just insane. But as a kid, you didn't have any control over anything. So when they hung my dog behind my house, they burned crosses in my yard, just saying, we don't want you here. I did not know the danger of it. I just thought, these are some stupid people. Why would you burn a cross? Jesus died on a cross. Why would you do that? It didn't make sense to me, and it still doesn't. But that's what happened. My aunt who raised me there, I said to her, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. She goes, oh, yeah, you're going to go. I was like, why? You're going to kill me. What? Why gotta go? She says, because if you don't, then the evil people win. And they could keep pushing you out. And I said, well, I'm not going. I don't want to get on the bus. I don't want to, let's take those crosses down. And she said, no, we're going to leave them up. I was like, no, why? You're going to get me killed here. You're going to kill all of us, I'm thinking. And she said something very wise to me, and I've never forgotten this. And she said, no, we're going to leave them up there, and we're going to see who and who is not going to get behind us in this community. And that was a certain strength that, from a matriarchic point of view, of a very strong female in my life, that gave me, I can't explain the great energy and the non-prejudice, non-meanness approach to life at that time. I didn't know it, but as time went on, I realized how valuable that advice was. I didn't run from a situation. I wanted to see how my environment in that community was going to respond to all this craziness, and I got through it. So I honed my skills as an athlete. I should have honed them as a student, but I didn't know where to go. Like I said, I was very insecure at that time. By the time I became a senior, I had scholarship offers for football. Had a few in basketball because I was just kind of developing. Again, everybody that was a senior were 2 years older than me. And so, I didn't develop really till I got in college, halfway through college, and I was just starting to, really be the athlete that I became. So when I realized that no one's going to do it but me, no one's going to help me but me, I said, what do I really want to do? You know, I knew I could play sports. I knew I got a scholarship. But what about after that? What about after that? And I started asking myself questions. Okay, I can play ball. Yeah, okay, but what if I get hurt? Lose a scholarship, you know. Friends don't come around when you're hurt. Maybe the first day, but after a while, they're like, oh yeah, I'll come by, I'll come by and see you. No. If you're on top, everybody comes by. You got a hit movie out, everybody comes by. Everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody's like, oh, Cylk, oh man, this is great. We're gonna hang out. Yeah, can you get me in the movie? Can you help me? Well, that gave me another type of learning that I didn't know I had. And that is building, always having something going on, not just have one thing. Because we all are very eclectic. I guarantee you, each one of you have more than one talent. And sometimes that talent, it doesn't come out until you are provoked, until somebody, challenges you. And a challenge doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just say, I want you to think about this, think about that, So when I get opportunities like this to come and speak, especially to my own school, my own alma mater, I'm excited because I really think if I was sitting where you are, I wouldn't even know what to ask. I would just like, how did you get from here to here? So we're going to do a little question and answer session, I don't want to just be up here talking, I want to hear your thoughts. I could talk for hours about the movies, how I did this, how I did that. But I'm more interested in what's in your mind right now. Because nobody asked me when I was sitting where you always sit. Nobody asked me what I wanted to do, what I thought. Do you realize they did not, at Carnes High School, did not even allow me to audition for a play? Because they said, well, nobody that looks like you, that, you're, like my mother's Cherokee. Yeah, I got hair that's all over the place, and I don't look like anybody, I guess. But who cares? I want to play a doctor in the play. No, sorry, nobody that looks like you we don't have that here for the play. You can come to the play and watch. Every year, I wanted to try out for a play, and they didn't let me. I ended up being a movie star. Go figure that one. I thought that's irony to the max. And the fact that I don't have any hatred in me, no, none at all. I don't have any of that crap that could have seeped in there at any given time. And I attribute that to a really wonderful Christian upbringing, that I had a chance to bounce off of really good people in my household, and when I moved here as well. The first time I realized I wanted to be an actor was in church, doing a play. Now I was a little silly little 6-year-old kid, right? And I was one of the 3 wise men, okay? Bringing baby Jesus, there was, frankincense, myrrh, jasmine, all these different things were supposed to, and I had this big old basket, it was bigger than me. I'm like, and then when it got to me, the first wise man said, I bring the baby Jesus, myrrh, or whatever. And then the next one comes up, I bring jasmine. And then I come up and I go, I forget everything. I went, Frank sent me. That was my debut. And the whole place cracked up, and I didn't know why they were laughing. I was like, but it sent an energy through me. I couldn't remember frankincense. Frank sent me. That's an improv, I guess. Didn't know I was improving, but it did. But that made me feel something. It made me realize that I like the stage, but the stage likes me. I wasn't afraid. And then what happened, a few years later, I was invited to go to a play. Now, to me, it's all about how you're introduced to things. It's all about, that presentation, whatever it is. If you're introduced to a certain food, if it's not cooked right, and you taste it, you're like, ew, I hate broccoli. Okay? Years later, you might taste somebody else's broccoli they did it just right or something. It was the right crunch, and it wasn't soft and mushy. It was perfect, and you go, I love broccoli. You know? So it's about how you're presented anything. So I went to this play, and I was like maybe 10 at that time, and I'm looking at it, and it was a bad play, but I didn't know it. It was a bad play. You know, they were like, I love you. And I'm like, ew, that's fake. You know, and I yelled it out. People were like, shh. But it is, it's fake. Anyway, so I didn't know I was looking at a bad play, and I hated theater. I hated theater then because it was presented in a really horrible fashion. But I didn't realize it was presented in a horrible fashion. I just saw a play that everybody was excited about, and I was like, that's horrible. I don't like it. So I went away. Now, 7 years after that, I went to a good play. I saw a great play, and I wanted to jump up on stage. I wanted to be in the play. In fact, I almost got up there one of the numbers. I was like, oh, I could do that. Oh, you sit down. I really was that into it. And I thought, wow, all the things I've missed because I wasn't presented clearly. I thought, no, when I get older and I get to be famous, I'm going to present things in a really good way so people can really understand what it is, so they can have a clear understanding. So I get to college, and I major in child psychology. Now, remember, my math is that of a gnat at this point, okay? So I'm really doing bad. Everything else is cool. I'm making B's, A's, and everything else. Seriously. But math, because I got behind early. And in a child's mind, when you're 4 and 5 and 6 years old, your personality is developed by the time you're 6 or 7. So the way you're sitting like that, the way you're sitting like that, and the way you are like that, the way I am like this, is the way we were at 4 and 5 years old. We're just big kids. So if during that time, 4, 5, and 6 and 7 years old, if you're not brought correctly, math and numbers, it ain't gonna happen later. Unless you have somebody that's really good in math around you, your mom or dad, or somebody's an educator in your house. Otherwise, you're dead, you know. So I found out who the smartest person in class was, and I hooked up with her. So we started hanging out. I started learning from her. I learned more from her than I did from the teachers. And it was because it was presented in a different way. So that told me that must be about anything you try to do. So by the time I graduated, I almost didn't graduate, by the way. By the time I graduated, I wanted to play professional basketball. That's all I could think about. But I had a degree in child psychology. And I loved working with children. I loved solving problems. I loved diving into something and trying to figure it out, you know. And I found out I liked child psychology or psychology, just period. Psychology is because it's study of the mind. You get to work things out, you know, and I thought, but I want to be an actor. I want to do those plays. Like, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to play basketball. So I had all these things I wanted to do, and I was like, I was going crazy. I didn't have anybody to talk to. You know, I didn't have anybody, no one around here in Knoxville, especially that time, in the late 70s and 80s. They all said, well, you better get you a farm and go work and go grow some tomatoes and taters, which you ought to do. Forget about that acting thing. Ain't no money in that. I didn't care about the money. I wanted to express myself. I was telling the teachers earlier, in high school at Carnes, I would be like, teacher would like, yes. I was like, gotta go to the bathroom. They're like, okay, because I knew they had to let you go to the bathroom. So I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. Okay. I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I went to the gym. Shot me some jumpers. Cozart at the line. 3 seconds, 2, 1, bam, he wins! Ah! Went to the bathroom, washed up real quick. Went back in the class, and I was good, man. I was cool. I could handle the rest of the class because it told me everybody is different. Some of us can't sit in one spot for an hour and learn. Some people need to move around to think. Sometimes mentally you have to release all the things that's going on at that moment for just a moment, just for a second or two, just to give your brain a break, and then come back to a subject. Then it's more clear. Even though I didn't realize it was happening at the time, that's what was happening at the time. So by the time I finally made it through college, which I went to a very difficult college my freshman year. For me, it was difficult. For you guys, it's probably easy. But I went to Montreat Anderson Junior College in North Carolina. And I thought, I'll play there 2 years, and I'll go to a major, I'll come to UT. They'll want me to play point guard. So also a few 100,000 other guys had the same idea. And the coaches saw me and they said, oh, he's good, but so I didn't get to play at UT. So I went to King College in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, right on the Tennessee line. I said, I'll go there because they need a good basketball player. They have a horrible basketball team. Now I'm thinking, basketball, not academics. I didn't realize King was one of the top academic schools in the country. They put out more doctors and lawyers than most big schools, especially then. And I thought, I barely got in, but I made it. But when I realized that the pros might not be calling, they just might not be calling me. There's only 1% each year that even get a serious look at being a pro. And that's people that come out of Penn State, Duke, UCLA, University of Tennessee. So I'm like, oh, the world's a little bit bigger than I thought when I was in Loudon. When I was in Loudon, that was my world. I was like, oh man. But when I stepped out of Loudon, nobody cared about me. They're like, I don't care, boy. You can play ball, who cares? What do you know? Where are you going after that? What happens if you get hurt? What happens if you get traded to another team? So all those things were wrapping in my brain. And I decided just to make a decision. Is that correct, English? I told you I wasn't that bright in those things. But when I did make a decision, I did it. I didn't venture left or right. I stayed right there. And I realized a goal, a plan, is nothing but a dream if you don't have areas to where in 2 weeks I want this, in a month I want this, in 1 year I want to have this. If you don't have a time frame in which that dream and goal that you want, if you don't have a time frame, it can just be, you can make a time frame, but have a time frame with your goals and with your dreams. Because if you don't, you're just dreaming and you never wake up. It's like, it's okay to dream, but wake up. You got to wake up at some point. So if you want to be an actor, have a goal, have that as a goal, but also have a time frame in which you want to achieve certain things. And today, I'd love to talk to you about whatever questions you might have, but I also want to talk about the three mediums in this entertainment industry. There's the film aspect, the television aspect, and the theater. And everything started from the theater. In fact, in the 13th century, 13th going into the 14th century, the actors that put on plays were the educators. And this is how. They would go to another country and come back with the way that that country dressed. They would come with different clothes and different accents, and they would tell them about the different histories of this part of the country and that part of the country. So people were educated through the arts, through acting, through drama. It wasn't just singing and dancing. It was really educational. That's how people got their experience at that time. That's how deep it was. So when I started studying that depth, I thought, wow. And the deeper I probed, I realized that as it got up to where we are, up to the 18th century, going into the 19th century, actors and the dramatic troupes that performed were so important to their community that when another country or another town would try to take over this part of the country or that town, they would get the actors first, destroy them, kill them. You know why? because it destroyed the hope of the people. And when you destroy hope, I don't think you have anything. I think you just air. So that told me it wasn't just about doing a scene. You know, it's educational, it's entertaining. And that's what gets me. I love educating the public because I love being educated about anything. Because education is power. When you have information and knowledge about something, you can walk in a room, you don't have to say anything, you just listen. You know, and people all of a sudden they're like, oh, you haven't said anything, what do you think? And you're like, funny you ask. Well, I think blah, 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 and they go, dang, I didn't know he knew that. You know, so I revert back to that child when I didn't know anything, or I was afraid to talk. And the only way to win now is to educate myself about whatever the history of things. And briefly, I want to tell you this. I developed an entertainment academy where people of all ages can go to and learn about acting, about not only acting, directing, writing, producing, all that, but what we call below the line jobs, which is ADs, assistant directors, PAs, personal assistants, production assistants, gaffers. How many know what a gaffer is? Anybody know what a gaffer is? That's what I thought. You don't count. Okay, I was in Houston last month, and I asked the same question. Now, I was speaking to a little over 3,000 people. It'd be like the auditorium in there, except 3 times the size or bigger. So they were hanging off the rails, and there was people all over, teachers, parents, all the kids, all the freshmen, sophomore, junior, and seniors. So I said, they saw the clip, and they were like, oh, yeah. I said, so, how many people want to be actors? Everybody's like, how many people want to be dancers, singers, directors? Everybody's like, I said, how many people want to be gaffers? Everybody's like, what's a gaffer? What's a gaffer? I could hear him, and he's like, I said, no gaffers? Really? And I knew they didn't know. And I said, okay, let me explain what a gaffer is. Let's just say, okay, who's like the hottest actress right now to you guys? Give me a name. Who's like really hot?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence? Hot? Okay, we'll go with Jennifer. Let's say me and Jennifer, we're in a scene. You know, we're going back and forth, we're arguing, let's say we're going out, she thinks I'm cheating on her, I think she's cheating on me, whatever the scene is, right? So I go, Jen, come on, you know, I love you. And Jen goes, I love you too. Well, the gaffer, before we get to that scene, the gaffer will come to the set with the DP, the director of photography, and set up the lighting where good old Jen is looking as hot as she can, and I'm looking as stupid as I can, or whatever they want me to look like, as long as they pay me. So that gaffer is so important to the overall scene. That gaffer, she has to know lighting, camera angles, dialogue, all that stuff, so she can make it crisp and pop. That it pops, the scene pops. Okay? There's some gaffers make over $100,000 a year. You never heard of them. There's some PAs that make $100,000 a year. Production assistants, you never heard of them. Or more. Depends on the budget of the movies and the shows. But the point is, a gaffer is someone that is so important to the scenes and to the production that there's no school for that. Yeah, you can learn lighting technician. You can be a lighting technician, but to be a lighting technician on a set, on a movie, is different than lighting a wedding scene or a wedding, per se. So there are so many opportunities now, so many different departments that you guys are not even aware of. You can become a millionaire if you're motivated by money, then work on that department, if that's your thing. Try different departments. You should write. You should film. Film your cat at home. Tell a story through the cat. I'm serious. It doesn't matter. It's about telling a story. If that's your thing, if that's what you want to do, experiment now before you get on the set that's millions of dollars. You don't try out then. You don't try things then. You know, you do. It's like rehearsal. It's too late once you get on the set to practice or work. You do that in your dressing room or your home in the front of the mirror before you get to the dressing room on the set, before you get to the actual set. So you have to learn the process. So anyway, back to being a gaffer. Anybody interested in being a gaffer at this point? See, there's a couple, 3, 4, 5 that did not know about being a gaffer before. I mean, that's interesting. So come on, I've seen some gaffers walk on set and nobody knew who they were. It was just a person just walking around going, you know, and as an actor, you're there, you just come in when they're ready to go. You know, they already set up, they've been there since 5 o'clock in the morning setting up the scene, and we just walk in and go, action, ba-da-da-da-da, cut, go back to your dressing room. Cool, pay me. But who set all this up? They were there early, and they're going to be there when I go home. They're going to be there tearing down the set or making sure it's the way it should be the next day. So I thought, who are these people? Who are these people that I don't know, I never heard of? So I started, every movie I did, I would introduce myself to people that I didn't know what they did. I was like, can you tell me who the gaffer is? They go, oh, yeah, that's the guy over there. And I went over and I said, hey, man, how you doing? I'm Cylk Cozart. I'll be playing the character of Joe Blow. And he goes, oh, I know. I said, man, it's interesting how you light scenes and stuff. And we would have a conversation, and I'd know where my key light is as opposed to my shadow light, because most directors are not really personable. They're not really people. You're things to them. Go there. Yeah, cut, action. Yeah. Okay. I mean, a lot of them are just so technically oriented that there's no contact. Very rare will you find a director like I hope that I am, that I'm real personable. I like to talk to the actors. I like to say, what are you thinking right now? And during this scene, what are you thinking about? And if they can't tell me what they're thinking about, they're not ready to film. Okay? So it made me feel so good that I would go up to nobody talks to the sound person. The sound person sits in the corner of the set with the headphones on, looking at a meter. You know, it doesn't go in the red. It just stays right in there. And they'll just put it on there and go, rolling. And they'll eat and drink. Nobody talks to them the whole day, every day. Rolling. That's all you hear. And I thought, why nobody talk to the sound person? I mean, so I made it a point. Every movie I did, I'd go up, hey, Cylk Cozart playing Joe Blow. And they all go, every one of them the same thing. They take off the headphones and go. I'm like, because nobody speaks to them. They only talk to us, the actors or the director or the producer. And they walk right by the person that's on the camera, is right here, that's been there for hours setting up. And these stupid actors will walk right by them on the set like, yeah. They don't even speak to people that they're working with. How horrible is that? Quick story. I was shooting a film in Houston. There was this one actor that thought he was the man or whatever, and he was walking around. He even carried himself like that. He would walk around with this smug look and, yeah, I did Broadway. And I'm like, ugh. But I had to put on a good face, and I was like, yeah, well, I've seen your work. Very good work. Yeah, exactly. Nobody liked this guy, okay? He came on the set, walked right by the camera people, didn't say hello, good morning, whatever, nothing. So the camera department was like, we hate this guy. We hate this guy. And I was like, well, why? They said, well, he's just a jerk to everybody. You know what these guys did? It was 3 cameramen. They got together and said, no, let's fix this guy. I said, what'd y'all do? They said, well, sometimes the camera might be a little blurry. Actors, we control theater, right? Television shows, the writer, whoever created that show, usually becomes the showrunner, which hires the director, the producers, and everybody else. Unless the network of the show, unless somebody in ABC, HBO, Showtime, wherever, Netflix, whoever that producer is or executive producer on that show, they will hire everybody. But the writers, most writers control the television shows, okay? Every Tuesday, they meet in a boardroom, the writers. They have more than one writer, by the way. And there are different writers that come in and help. You know, they find out who's the best writers through the process. Every Tuesday they come in, they meet, and they talk about the next show, an round robin type of thing. And whoever has the best idea for the next show, that's the one they concentrate on. Then they all write, you might write about the first act, okay? You might write about the second act, and you might write about the third act. And then you form that script. And then you do a rehearsal. You bring your actors in to rehearse it. And that's when you realize what works and what doesn't work, when the actors come in. Because the actors come in and they do their take on the character. And if the writer, that wasn't what they were thinking, if they're a bad writer, they're going to freak out. The good writers allow the actors to do what they have worked on in front of their mirror at home, and then they come in and they show the producer and the director what they see as that character. Then you write it and shape it around that, if that's on point, if the acting is on point. We'll get into acting later. So that's television. Now movies. Movies, it's the director's medium, okay? The director is choosing the shots, choosing the music that goes in the shots, working with the actors, working with the writer, working with the script supervisor. Script supervisor will sit right next to the director behind the camera with a pad, or now computers, and some still have computer and they write down, because sometimes it's something about writing that's really good to the soul. Pencil, a thought to the pencil, to the paper, is something that gets out of their mind and onto something physically you did. It does something to you. It really does. I suggest all you guys to write, physically write. It's just a great thing to have. But the script supervisor has to know dialogue. So when the actors are going through their scene, and they get up, one gets up and walks over here and picks up this and goes, you know, I just don't get these kids these days. And then sit it there. Well, no. Script supervisor will go, along with someone else, will say, Got to put it back here where it was, okay? Because it will be the continuity person will work with the script supervisor to say, Cylk, when he picked up the Starbucks, it was with his right hand, and he turned this way. He didn't turn that way. He didn't use it. So everything has to match. You can't leave all that up to the director. That's why you have, it's a collaborative art. It's a collaborative art. The script supervisor, that's just some of the things. Now, that script supervisor is going to say, okay, what lens do you want to use, Cylk? To the director. Say, I'm directing. I'm behind the camera. And I'm like, okay, let's use a 5.0 lens, which is one that's really close, a tight shot. And the director's not remembering all this stuff, so a script supervisor will say, okay, when we go back to that scene, Cylk, you were on a 5.0 lens. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So she will say to the DP and the camera assistants, she will say, okay, this shot's going to be a 5.0 lens. They write 5.0 next to that line. So their scripts are like lines going here and little camera images over here, and, you know, it was a 2.5 over here. They do all that stuff so they can work with the director who's working with the actors, you know, and setting up the shots. So you see how it's a collaborative art? So every department is so important, so important. There's not one main department that does everything, because it's all together. If one of those departments is out of whack, let's say your costume designer is not very, doesn't have that much history at being a costume designer. And he or she the director did not meet with them before the movie. Well, they just had one outfit for the actors. Let's say something happens and you spill something on that. The director will say, well, just go to the change. I know you have doubles or triples. And the costume designer will go, huh? Oh, you mean I was supposed to get more than one outfit? Yeah. Oh, it wasn't in the budget. Well, it's too late then. Movie's already started. You're supposed to have that conversation in pre-production, before any production happens. That's why the director meets with each department. If I'm directing the movie and you're the script supervisor, I get with you me and you, and I say, okay, you just worked on a movie. How was your experience? How do you like to work? A great director will listen, not talk. Will listen to each department, to the script supervisor, to the costume designer, and say, okay, do you have a good relationship with the stores, with Saks Fifth Avenue or with Walmart, whoever we're getting our clothes from, okay? And a really good costume designer will go, in pre-production, will go to different stores and see if they can get deals. Say, look, I got 3 main actors that I have to get clothes for, and I have to have exactly the same clothes, but at least 2 sets, and 3 if we can. And that's a really good, costume designer that does that research and work. But if it's Cousin Joe that says, I want to be a costume designer, they ain't going to do that. They're not going to know to do that, and they're going to put you in a bad situation. So pre-production, prep is the best thing you can do, because by the time you get on the set, it's too late. Guy don't even know what a jib is. Costume designer doesn't know to get doubles shirts in case something happens to that, or, that's just common sense when you're making a production, okay? So movies, the director is controls. Everybody comes to the director with what they need. So with those 3 genres, you kind of get a sense of how things can be separated and how they can come together.